up, y'all? Happy weekend. Hopefully you guys are having a good one out there. I've got Daniel with me here again
Hello.
because we are kind of on opposite spectrums for this. So I needed to bring in a little conflicting perspectives to give you guys. And we are going to talk about friendships today. We are going to talk about expectations of friendships. Because like I said, Daniel and I are kind of on opposite ends for this. So, yeah, and I think a lot of it is just my upbringing, right? I mean, I think that plays in for everybody. But for me, probably, like I think a lot of it is because I was a military kid growing up. We moved a lot, whatever, but I know I kind of do have a tendency to kind of like wall myself off quicker than I probably should. Probably just as a defense mechanism because, like, I don't know. I mean, it sounds dramatic, but it's like if I'm pushing someone away first, then they don't have the opportunity to push me away. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm the one that's, cutting off a friendship, like, then I can't feel rejected by them and so on and so forth. If I'm the one initiating the self-isolation, then it's on me, it's not on them. Gotta love a little hyper-independence, but...
Oh, yeah.
yeah. But anyway, but Daniel's like the opposite end of that, right? Like, also, I do think a lot of that difference is guy friendships versus girl friendships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Honestly, I mean, typically guys, we can, just not talk for long periods of time and stuff. And then, just, hey, y'all gonna meet up for this or that, or I'm planning a trip. And then it's like, cool, we'll get together and we'll do it. Knock it out, that's kind of how I am with my friends back home and everything.
But it's also guy friendships, I feel like. It's like you default choose your friends in middle school because they happen to be sitting next to you that day and you just both share a Lunchable and then you're like, okay, we're just going to be friends now. And then you just keep those friends for the rest of your life and that's just it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, mine were church friends, but yeah, same thing is you just typically, they all lived like fairly close, but me being in the military, even though I was in California, it's still a little bit, but for most of the big events and just anytime I visit and stuff, I'd always let them know. They let me know, and then we'd still try and meet up, and typically we would. But we don't talk all the time together. We did do like birthday gifts, which was kind of cool, I think. In terms of like someone's birthday's coming up, so we'd all talk about it, pitch in some money, get them a gift, But yeah, I mean, honestly, we don't talk like every day. We do talk a good amount, but nothing crazy like even every once a month, something like that, if that. So.
But I also feel like sometimes that can, just as with girl friendships, which we'll talk about in a second, like how those can go to extremes and it can be not awesome. I think guy friendships, as great as they are with just the low effort, low commitment, all of that, I think that there can be negatives with that too, though, and that can go to an extreme because, I mean, throwback to my mental health, like men's mental health awareness episode, I think sometimes with those low effort friendships that guys have, like, yeah, cool, you can watch sports together and not talk at all and just drink beers and just exist on a couch together, and that's great, but like maybe you don't have that same depth of a relationship that sometimes girls can foster with their female friends. Like you're not able to be as vulnerable as maybe you should be sometimes. And so like, yeah, cool, you have the same friends from middle school and you'll just be friends for literally for the rest of your life. And, cool, you have that unconditional friendship and stuff, but, like, if you're really, truly struggling, if you're like, I'm going through a divorce or I'm not okay right now, like, can you still talk to those people? Like, do you have a close enough relationship with those guys where you can't just be truly open and honest and vulnerable and say, like, hey, I'm not doing okay, I need help. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's where... you kind of swing to the other side of the pendulum. I think that's where the issues come in because then you don't have as open and honest and vulnerable of a relationship. And I think that's where sometimes guy friendships can kind of be lacking. But like I said, I think girls, we kind of take it to the other extreme because we do, I think we seek out those deep, like truly, like deeply soul rooted connections and relationships with other females where you can be completely open and honest and vulnerable. And I mean, you're not going to have that type of relationship with everybody. And so I think that's where some of those stereotypes come in of like girls being catty or girls like having a best friend and then, oh, I hate her, I'll never talk to her again. Back and forth of this whole like you make friends, you lose friends, you make friends, you lose friends. Because I think girls are more inclined to actively seek out those super close relationships. And because it's just not going to happen with everybody, you're going to, like, trial and error process, you're inherently going to lose friends in that process of trying to find that, like, that deep connection. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And, you know, like, going along with that, right? Like, you know, you have your stereotypical, like you were saying, guys versus girls relationships. But it also, I think, really depends on just the individual person, right? There's a lot of people that... Like, for example, we'll go with guy groups and how they're notorious for, like, yeah, let's just go hang out, drink some beers, do whatever, and then no one really wants to get deep, right? Because it's this stereotype of, like, we don't talk about feelings, right, as men and all that. But I'm sure there's plenty of people, myself included, that have probably wanted to speak up, and they just felt like, I guess they just either couldn't or they were just uncomfortable because nobody else spoke up. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. Everyone's got problems, and most people want to talk about stuff, you know, kind of let it out. They just don't really know how to properly, if that makes sense. And especially when other people aren't really showing you or like making you feel comfortable enough that, you know, you could say those things, they tend to kind of not say it. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I can imagine that it's probably very scary and intimidating if you're with a group of guys, like, at B-dubs or something. It probably is really intimidating to be that first person to be like, hey man, how do you get the strength to get out of bed every day? You know what I mean? Like, because they do, I mean, guys, bless their hearts, but a lot of times they don't necessarily know how to comfort other dudes because, again, that's not something you guys were, you know, growing up. Like, guys are not ever given that opportunity to be vulnerable or to sympathize with other people and to give other people comfort, so they just truly don't even know what it's like to experience that, unfortunately. And so yeah, maybe they mean well, but if they don't know how to properly comfort you or console you when something is going wrong, maybe they're okay that you spoke up, but they're like, I don't know what to do. So then they get awkward. And then what do we do most of the time when we're awkward in an uncomfortable situation? We laugh and we joke and we play it off and we just kind of undermine it. We crack jokes about it. And then that other person that did speak up, now they're like, oh, they're just making fun of me. They're just ha ha ha. This is joke time.
Yeah.
And then they don't ever share again. So it's, I mean, that's gotta be tough. That's got to be really tough. But yeah, that's where I think we differ a lot in our perspectives and I think our expectations of what good friends are like. Because, you know, for your friends from like way back when and stuff, and like some of the friends you've met in the military, to me, I'm like, they're not super awesome supportive friends because, you know, you move across the country, you get a new job, you're having a kid, all of these huge life changes. And I'm looking at the ones, you know, like, okay, did they even text you? Like, did they even ask if you made it to Ohio? Did they even ask how anything is going? And for you, you're like, no, that's normal, that's fine. Maybe we go 3, 4, 5 months without actually talking. And for you guys, that's normal. For me, I'm like, is that, you know what I mean? Or even like when you guys are gaming sometimes. And I'm like, y'all are kind of mean. You know what I mean? Like sometimes there's a line, right? And I think it's sometimes tricky to see where that line is. But we'll get more into expectations in a second as well. But I want to start with, I guess, probably the difficult part of this episode. And that's recognizing and acknowledging and taking accountability for the fact that sometimes we are the shitty friends. Like sometimes we are not good friends to other people. And that is what it is, right? And yes, sometimes, I think it's just because we get so caught up in our own lives and stressors and just life in general. And we just kind of forget to be good friends, because it is really easy to not text somebody, to not reach out, to not remember their birthday, all of this stuff, right? But the issue is then when we do those things and we don't communicate what's going on, and then we expect our friends to still go above and beyond for us. We expect them to be able to read our minds and to know what we need, to know what we're thinking, what we're mad about, what we, why we haven't reached out, all of this stuff. And I think the biggest thing with that, to combat that for both sides, if you're the one that just doesn't have the bandwidth to reach out, or if you're the person that's not being reached out to and you're not feeling awesome about that, I think the biggest thing is just, it sounds dumb, but honestly, the biggest thing is communication. Like, if you're just honest about it, that's gonna, I don't know, I feel like that goes a long ways. Because I've been there. I've been on both sides. Like, I've been the one that when I'm working crazy long hours and I'm just exhausted and I'm overstimulated and I'm stressed out and I'm like, I need to just sit at home in a dark room. Like, even just sometimes replying to texts, like when my phone is just ding, 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 ding. Because for me, sometimes, like when you're very overstimulated and when I'm very stressed out, when people are texting me, if they're asking me questions, hey, do you want to hang out? What about this? What about that? Oh, can you make this decision? Oh, where do you want to go to eat? You pick the place. What time? What day? All of these questions where it's like inherently something is being asked of me. It's so overwhelming. Sometimes even just to reply to texts, I remember I would be like, I can't. Like, I'm like shutting my phone off, putting it on do not disturb. Like, sometimes those littlest things can feel super overwhelming. But I was honest. Like, I would like tell some of my best friends, like, hey, I'm not in a mental space right now to reply to texts or to make decisions. I'm like, I don't care where we go to eat. Can you pick it? Can you decide? Can you choose? Because I don't want to make any decisions right now. Or also, I've absolutely told people this as well multiple times. I'm a big fan of telling people no. I'm a big fan of being like, I don't want to leave my house right now. I don't want to hang out. Point blank. Like, I would rather I need to sit at home right now and be alone and do nothing because of X, Y, and Z. And I feel like my really good friends have always been very supportive of that. And so I think sometimes you just have to tell people like, hey, love you to pieces. Sorry I can't be there for you right now, but like, I gotta take care of me. I just don't have the bandwidth. Point blank. And a good friend will acknowledge that. A good friend will support that and be like, okay, let me know how I can help. Let me DoorDash you some food. Did you eat today? Did you drink water today?
It's kind of tough too with going with that, right? Because like, friendships, like any relationship, they take work. You have to put into it what you get. And so there, with that, every friendship's different, right? Like, even with just two people, is like one person, their quality time or whatever is they want to spend time with you physically, whatever it is. And then another might be the opposite, where they're like, hey, like, like you said, you're overstimulated but if your like job keeps doing that, where you feel like that all the time, to where you're like, they invite you to things like, maybe once a week or something, and you had multiple where you're like, hey, sorry, I can't do that, yada yada, and then they could be hurt because they're like, I'm there for you in your way whenever you need me, but then when I try to get a hold of you, or I want to go do stuff, and you keep doing that, right? And it's just kind of tricky. It like really is. Some people, depend on if you're extrovert or introvert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. And the different personalities that people have, it gets tricky in terms of trying to balance that. Because some people like might hate to go out, whether it's with their best friends and stuff. They don't want to do it. But they're like, this is my friend. Like, when I go out with them, I'm willing to do it, and I do enjoy it because I'm with my friend. No matter the toll that it takes in other ways, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, friendships are just like any relation, right? It's very, very tricky, very difficult.
Well, it takes work.
And I think, yeah, it takes work. You just need to be upfront about it. Like
Mm-hmm.
you were saying, that's the most important thing is, growing up and stuff, we'd be like, oh, you don't want to go do this, like you're a flake or whatever, and people would like kind of shame you for it. And you're like, no, I didn't want to go out,
Mm-hmm.
And they try to like make you feel terrible, right? And I'd say that's a big no-no for friendships and stuff. You don't want
Yeah.
you want to acknowledge how they feel, so.
Yeah, and I like how you kind of brought in the introverted versus extroverted too, because there's also been times where someone's like, hey, do you want to go to this? I don't know. Let me think of my own personal hell. Oh, be like, hey, do you want to like leave at midnight and go to this club and blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, absolutely not. Do I want to hang out with you during the daytime? Yes. And so I think sometimes just making that distinction when you're saying no, can't make, don't say, oh, shoot, sorry, can't make it, I'm busy. Or, don't just like flake, but be like, hey, that actually sounds terrible to me, but I like you as a human. I want to hang out with you, but can we do something else? You know what I mean?
Or at like a more reasonable time,
Yeah, you know what I mean? Be like, hey, I don't want to leave my house after 9 p.m. Can we do something during the daytime?
Yeah.
Or, hey, I hate huge crowds. Can we do something more mellow and low key? Or vice versa. If they're like, especially with new friendships, if you're kind of testing it out and be like, oh, do you want to do this? I don't know, like a at-home craft night or something. And if you're not into that vibe and you're completely the opposite vibe, just be honest. Be like, hey, I'm not really into that, but I want to spend time with you. What about this option instead? And you can find a good middle ground, But it's all that communication piece. And what I will say too, I don't know, I feel like it's helped me and I feel like it's worked for me. So that's why I'm sharing it with you guys. But being open and honest about your communication style and preferences is also super helpful too. Because when I'm in that headspace of like, wow, my 8% is the best I can do right now. All you're getting is 8%. Especially with communication, like I'll tell people that too. But like, hey, I don't have the bandwidth to text you. I don't have the bandwidth to call you. I don't have the bandwidth to hang out. When I send you a meme, that is my form of communication. That is me saying, hey, I still am acknowledging you exist. Saw this meme, thought it was funny. It made me think of you, so I'm sending it to me at certain times in your life, and it'll happen. There's definitely waves, like things will ebb and flow. But I told my friends, I'm like, hey, when I send you memes, this is me talking to you. Like in my head, that is us having a conversation. In my head, that is me putting in the effort to maintain that friendship and that communication channel. And they'll be like, cool, got it. But if you don't communicate that, and then if they're on the receiving end and they're like, dude, you haven't reached out in 4 months, then that's where, those hurt feelings, the unmet expectations, that's when that comes in if you don't have that conversation. Because I've been on the other side too, especially with this pregnancy. Because I'll tell you what, like, pregnancy is pretty isolating. And it can get kind of lonely. And same thing, I've been open and honest with my friends. Like, I'll text them and be like, hey, I'm feeling, whether it's valid or not, this is how I'm feeling. Like, I'm feeling neglected, honestly. Can we do a FaceTime date? Or can we do this? Can we plan something? Can we watch a show together? Just so we can share something, especially now that everything's long distance for us. And they're like, yeah, absolutely, got you. And they say like, hey, sorry I can't text you every day, every week, whatever. But same thing, where I'm at right now, I'll send you memes. I'll send you videos. I'll send you recipes that you can try cooking since you have the free time to cook now. And so with that being said, though, let me flip-flop it to the other perspective and the other side of this. Because obviously there's 2 sides to everything. So, like I said, because of my upbringing, whatever, I'm kind of more on the side of like, let's over communicate. Let's, do this, let's do that. I think I do kind of sometimes have maybe a little bit too high of expectations for my friends. And I think sometimes Daniel's maybe on the opposite end of that, where he's more of like, I'm just here existing. I'm fine with other people also just being here existing. You know what I mean? But I saw that, and I wish I saved it. Of course I didn't. But I saw a post from someone's story the other day, and I should have written it down because it really made me think, and it honestly kind of spurred on this whole episode idea. But I can't remember it verbatim, and of course now it's lost to the depths of Instagram. But basically it said like, you know, everyone wants to set expectations on friendships. I'm not here for that. I'm here for the low effort friendships. I'm here for the unconditional support. You know, whenever you need me, I'll be here for you. Yada, yada, yada. Like, no expectations, no unrealistic boundaries, blah, blah, blah. And, like, I do agree with that. I think that's good. But I also think that that can be a cop-out approach sometimes. Because, again, we expect other people to be amazing, supportive friends all of the time, 100% of the time, to always be there for us. But if we're not there for them, why would they always be there for us? You know what I mean? That's kind of, if it's a one-way street, that's not awesome. Right? And like I said, if you have that communication of saying, hey, I can't go above and beyond for you right now. Again, 20% is the best I can give you, so I'm giving you 20%. I feel like if you have that conversation, then everything's fine. But if you don't have that conversation, if you're literally going, to me, if you're going 3, 4, 5 months or more, zero contact, and then you just expect everything to be fine, like, I don't know. And again, I think I go too far in the extremes on this side. So, keep that in perspective. Keep that in the back of your mind. I do acknowledge I think sometimes I'm too far with this. But yeah, for me, I'm like, if you're not reaching out to me, if you're not checking in on me for months on end, do I need that in my life? You know what I mean? Especially with this pregnancy. If you didn't check on me the entire pregnancy, but then now that the baby's almost here, you want to be like, oh yeah, I can't wait to see her, my little niece, blah, 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 auntie, whoever. I'm like, no, you're not getting front row tickets to this show. It's cute you think that, but no, I mean, if you never asked me how I was doing, you never checked in on me, But the people, the people that were there for me in the first trimester, and they were like, here's some crackers, here's some ice water. Literally just to like, sometimes just be there for emotional support. Be like, hey, I know you're feeling shitty, so I'm not even going to ask how you're doing, but I hope you feel better soon. Or like, is there anything that sounds good right now in this second? Like, what's your safe food? And I'll buy you. Like, for a little bit there, Uncrustables were like one of 3 safe foods.
Oh, yeah.
And I told my friend that, and she bought me like the 24 pack of them. Or like one time when I was almost into solids, and I was like, wow, the specific river cat roll from Umi's Sushi. I'm like, I think that sounds amazing right now. I think I can stomach that. And freaking the angel sent from above, it was like a Tuesday night. She had worked more than 12 hours, probably exhausted, had to work again the next day for the next like 4 days straight. And I'm like, hi, it's me. Can we go eat this? And I'm sorry if I throw it up. I might throw it up. I might immediately regret it. Can we go in sweatpants? And I don't remember the last time I washed my hair. Like, can we go eat this? And she was like, hell yeah, girl, get your shoes on. Let's go. And we went. It was like the best tasting thing in the world. But I'm like, those people? Like, you best believe she gets auntie title. You know what I mean? Hell yeah. Because she was there for me. She was always checking in on me. She was always taking care of me. But the people that, like, didn't, they're like, oh, you can't go out drinking anymore. You can't go out, snowboarding. You can't do this. You can't do that. And then they just kind of forget I exist because I'm not, quote unquote, fun anymore. They can get the balcony seats. They're not getting front row tickets.
The balcony's still generous, they still there, so, But yeah, no.
They can listen from across the street.
And no, you make very, very valid points with that, right? And so I'm just going to kind of throw in, I guess, my 2 cents, because, like I said, we're differing opinions in, like, the opposite ends of the spectrum, right? So for me personally, with my friend, and I don't even think it's necessarily like a guy thing, even if it sounds like a guy stereotype, this is literally just me, or you know me with relationships, like, we're very different. Like you're like birthdays, holidays, all that stuff. It is like the biggest event of the year, basically, right? And for me, like, you know, let's be honest, I could not care less, right? Like,
You really couldn't.
if someone, like, for example, like, right, my birthdays, like, I ain't gonna lie to you, man, there, especially with, like, I've had a couple deployments where my birthday fell on it, or, like, you know, just because it's so close to Christmas, right? So, and, you know, whatever it is, like, if you don't hit me up on my birthday, right? I don't care if you're my freaking family member, right? Like, I ain't gonna get mad, because I'm like, at the end of the day, it's just one day. Like I said, I probably forgot about it. I don't wake up and go, oh man, it's my birthday. When it is December, I'm like, you know, I'm thinking like, oh yeah, Christmas, holidays, New Year's, like, I'm getting those days off, you know, at least, especially now being in recruiting and everything. So yeah, I'm like the kind of person, that's just kind of how I am. I never really valued that kind of stuff personally. And I know there's people out there, right? They value it, and they will hold a grudge. They will be like, here's the 20 people that I expect to tell me happy birthday, and then the 5 that didn't, like, you know,
You're dead
whatever,
to me.
right? Yeah, exactly, right. And obviously that's a little dramatic because, you know, at the end of the day, like, typically they'll do the whole sorry for a belated birthday, yada yada, right? But, you know, with that being said, that kind of, I guess, trickles into a couple other things. Like you mentioned earlier, when you don't talk to people for 3-4 months, and then, you know, just when they need something, now it's like, oh, because you need me, kind of thing, right? But I'm actually like, I'm that same way. I'm like you. We won't talk 3-4 months, but if you're like, yo, I'm in trouble, like, I would hope my friends know, like, yo, I'm there. I'm willing to lend you an ear, right? Like, you can hit me up for anything, no matter how deep. I don't know how clear I make that, or that they like know that about me, right? But yeah, I'm like, dude, hit me up, right? I don't get a lot of those, which I guess kind of sucks because that means either A, like, they don't know that I'm willing to give them that ear, or, you know, B, they just probably don't feel close enough or whatever it is. But yeah, for me, I'm like, I'm going to be there to celebrate you with the big things, right? I'm going to make sure to let you know. Typically, if I know a birthday is big for you, right, and I happen to know the birthday, you know, I'm going to tell you. And I guess that's kind of, like, birthdays, for example, like, because let's be real here. For you, it's a huge deal because it's your birthday, right? And so I can see I can, you know, absolutely see, like, that aspect of, like, yo, it's my day. Like, I get one day a year and you can't even say happy birthday. Like, I don't even want a gift. Just acknowledge me that day, right? So I can absolutely see that in terms of, like, friends and all that stuff. But, like, if I don't say happy birthday to you, it's not because I don't care. It's probably because I forgot it. Because, like I said, I barely know my own birthday. And so, like, that kind of stuff not important to me, just personally. But if I know that it is big for you, like, and I, you know, like I said, I make it a point to remember your birthday. Like, I'm going to typically, you know me, I don't do calendars. So, but I would try and do something like that.
Dude, thank God for Facebook is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and see, like, that's another thing too. Thank you for bringing it up because I don't have that social media.
So you don't
How
get
many
that
times
reminder.
have you been like, yo,
hey,
your
it's your
friend...
aunt's birthday today.
Yeah, and I'm
hey,
like,
it's your best friend's birthday today. Did you text him yet? Oh,
yeah.
shoot.
Like, because I'm so bad. Like, I'll know, like, 99% of the time, if not 100, like, I'll know the general month, right? And I could probably even narrow it down to within a week or two. But, like, even, especially with, if, like, depending on how long I've known you and everything, like, I know they come around every year and everything, but, like, dude, like, you know, we live in life out here, man. Like, no offense, but I wouldn't say more important, but in terms of, like, I got stuff going on now, right, that's huge, and, like, you know, and I'm, like, that's what my friend group, like, no one take no offense to not saying birthdays, so we typically do over, like, the chat, but, like, I'm like, dude, I'm just, you know, that's on me, but I'm just bad at that kind of stuff, you know, so.
Well, I don't know if this is really better or not, but that's why I really, really try my best. When someone, like, inherently mentions, like, oh, my birthday's on this day or whatever, or if I see it, what I try and do is I'll put it in my phone calendar and then have it repeat every single year. So it's just always in there. Because otherwise, like, I don't remember. Like, if you ask me right now, like, hey, when is this person's birthday? I'd be like, ugh. But if you have it in your phone, then, you know, you can remember a little bit easier. You see it in there. You just have that visual reminder, you know? Yeah, and I mean that's the tough thing. That's why I said it's definitely a spectrum, and that's why I really, really wanted to have you on this episode, because I wanted it to be a discussion. I wanted it to be like not a debate, because that sounds dramatic and like controversial, but if it's only my perspective, which like I said, I absolutely acknowledge that I have a tendency to swing too far to one side, and you're kind of on the other side to balance it out, because it is tough. Like, yes, and here's what I will say too. I think it is tough because yes, if someone I knew or worked with or was friends with 8 years ago, if they texted me right now and was like, "Hey, I'm in Ohio, do you want to get dinner?" I'd be like, "Heck yeah." Or if they were like, from 8 years ago, if they were like, "Hey, I'm in trouble, I need help. Can you help me with this?" Yes, I would be like, "Absolutely, I got you." But I think my line where I'm kind of drawing that line in the sand is like the people that say, "Oh, you're my best friend, blah, 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 we're so close, yada, yada, yada."
Yeah.
And then if they don't text me for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, and then they're still like, "You're my best friend." Maybe I'm your best friend,
Yeah.
but like, I don't know that you are my best friend anymore. You know what I mean? But like I said, I do acknowledge I have a tendency to kind of go overboard with that. So,
And that's the thing too, is like, because everyone forgets, like, you have these little pockets in your life where, like, yeah, maybe at that point in time, y'all were like the bestest of best. Like, you was like each other's number ones thing near, right? Barring like, your oldest best friend, or like your family members, right? There could have been a point where you were very, very close, which is valid. And I think along the lines, there comes a point where people, friends can differ on past, right? Like, they go different ways, if you will. Views change. The things that the common similarities that we had, that we valued so much about one another, and what made us so close, like, things change, and it's
oh yeah.
okay. And I think that's kind of tough with friends, is that, one is they can kind of be going down that same path, if you will, and then, or even you might be the same path person, and the other person kind of starts taking a different path, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Y'all always still have those memories. I'd hope that, like, it doesn't end badly where y'all are like straight beefing or just don't talk to one another ever. But it's okay to acknowledge and be like, look, like, we're just not as close anymore. We just view the world differently, whatever way that is. And at the end of the day, like, that's okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because, I mean, it's also, for the longer you've been friends with someone, especially, I feel like, especially in your 20s, you personally change a lot as a person
Oh yeah.
in those years. Like 4, 5, 6, 8 years, 10 years,
Yeah.
you're a completely different person. So, yeah, you could have been really close with someone because at that time in your life and in their life, you two were one type of person. And now, as you've both grown older, which is a good thing, I think. I mean, I don't want to be the same person I was when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm a completely different person.
Yeah.
I'm glad you, Daniel, are a completely different person. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no,
you
absolutely.
grow. I don't think anyone should just be the exact same person you were
No, yeah, no.
from one point in your life to another point. So, yeah, you can. But then you get into that tricky thing of like, okay, if you do grow apart, if your lives just go different paths, that's kind of tricky to navigate too. Especially if one friend realizes it and the other one doesn't. Oof.
No, yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And, that's just kind of life. Friends become acquaintances, or even friends that you never knew were going to be close become like your bestest friends. And everyone just kind of shifts around. And I think that's a normal thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's just kind of life, how it is. And I think at the end of the day, as long as you and your friends know that, like, yo, if we are friends, like, if y'all ever needed anything, come to me, let me know, and I would hope you be the same, the other way if I ever need you. I think at the end of the day, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, and yeah, like you said, if they ever come to visit in Ohio and stuff, like, y'all are more than welcome to come to the house, come see the baby and all that stuff. Maybe not immediately, but, of course you start growing up and everything. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, we just gotta be decent human beings. But no, but for real though, like, I think we should all try a little bit, as best as we can, depending on, the bandwidth you have right now, whatever's going on in your life. Just try to be a decent human being. Try to be, maybe a little bit better friend than you have been. Because like I said, yes, it's work. Yes, it takes a little bit of extra time and bandwidth to send that check-in text, to remember to send them something on their birthday, to call somebody, to invite them out, whatever. But ultimately, me personally, I think like we can't expect other people to show up for us if we're not showing up for them. We can't expect them to be comfortable coming to us with anything if we don't make it clear that we are supportive and open to them coming to us for everything, that we're not going to judge them and all that. So, yeah, I think we just need to take care of each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yeah, with that being said, make good choices, be a decent human being. Oh, are we doing it together now? That's what we're doing?
All right, you go solo.
No, it's fine. Okay. Take care of one another, and I will catch y'all next week. Okay, bye.